questions in French, and we'll clarify in French the problem. We might talk in French too, definitely.
It happens. Okay, hi, I'm Teresa, and this is Gina. And we're going to be talking about taking JavaScript into the field. And it's going to be a case study of an application that we wrote called FieldDB. So what we'll be talking about today is, we'll just describe FieldDB and its architecture and what its goals were and what we were looking to do with it. And then we're going to concentrate on two of the libraries that we use. We use PouchDB for persisting data on the client side in JavaScript. And we're going to look at Require.js, which we use for building for different environments. Okay, so FieldDB we wrote, it was an application, a database application for field linguists. For linguists who go out in the field and collect data. They're talking to people, they're collecting the language data, they're looking for patterns. Yeah, so what do they need? They need it to be offline, because often the places where they're going are remote locations where there's no internet or the internet's not reliable. They need to be able to still use our program. There's a lot of data out there, a lot of interesting data, a lot of data they want to collect. So we have to deal with data intensive. Gina was telling me that if they could, linguists would import the whole internet.
Yeah.
We'd rather they didn't do that, but
Corpuses can get quite large. So when I was working on Urdu, which is the language of Pakistan, the best source of data for me was online forums. So I learned how to write other expressions and scrape forums. And in the end, I had a nice corpus of about a gig of data that was completely messy, that I would have loved to have something that I could clean it with. And JavaScript is a pretty good language for that.
yeah.
I have a very small question that we just started. Maybe you'll cover it later, but let's say I don't know anything about linguistics. I'm not sure I know even what kind of data you're talking
We're
about.
going to show you examples of the data.
Okay,
I think the core thing to remember from what we're going to show you is that it doesn't matter if it's linguistics data.
Okay.
Because we chose a NoSQL approach, which we'll get into. And we'll explain that a little bit more.
Okay, and so on the data, continuing on, these linguists have highly structured data. They have a lot of specific things they're looking for when they go out into the field, but it changes. They discover something new, they suddenly want to start recording that, or they want to correct something earlier, or the specific focus of that outing or that session is different. So, also they're talking to real people. There are people out there which have private data, so encryption is big, security is big.
It's required by many grants. So if you collect human subjects data, you're usually required to protect the privacy of people you work with. So having encrypted data is crucial for an app that goes online, and not something that existed on the market.
Also, a lot of stuff that linguists want to do with their data isn't practical to be done in JavaScript, so we use a few web services for doing some of the more data-intensive stuff, and also for authentication security stuff. Similarly, we like to share our data out to the world, so we also make available some web widgets for sharing select data in to other people. So, right back to the top of our list, we're going to say, what do we mean by offline? There's a few different ways. So, most JavaScript is online, constantly connected to the internet. Almost every click, you're going to a server, you're asking for information, you're getting it back, and then you're changing it. We don't mean that. We also don't mean online with an offline cache, just a cache there to make things faster. That's not what we mean. We mean only offline. We mean you take your computer, you completely disconnect it from the internet, you go off to Mars or something, where maybe they have internet, but I don't think so.
Or Vermont, sometimes.
That's true too. And it should still work. It should work perfectly, and then when you happen to have internet again later, you can sync it to your server. Okay, so this is a quick overview of the architecture of our program. On the client side, we have either a Chrome extension or an Android app. And everything else over there is JavaScript. So we use Backbone, which in turn uses handlebars and underscore and jQuery, so they're all in there. We're going to talk a little later about required.js, which also uses text.js, just a little extension of that. We're going to talk about PouchDB, as I mentioned, and it has a couple of libraries connecting it to Backbone to make that work all nice. In the background, PouchDB uses IndexedDB, which uses LevelDB, and some storage in there, and a cookie floating around. On the server side, it's Node.js, and CouchDB is our server-side version of our PouchDB client-side database. So that's where we're doing the syncing when I talk about syncing online. We're moving our PouchDB stuff to CouchDB. You want to see the REST call?
Just quickly, so that REST call down there is the initial case where a user registers themselves. So we hit the Node.js web service, which is for authentication, just once. We set up their user account on CouchDB so that their Chrome extension can contact CouchDB directly. So then our node service is no longer involved. So our node is extremely small because CouchDB is RESTful. It serves the data just fine, and it's authenticated in HTTPS.
Okay, so the key ones we're looking at today are PouchDB first, and then we're going to look at REST. So, Apache CouchDB, this is the quote off their website, their little description, is a database that uses Json for documents, JavaScript for MapReduce queries, and regular HTTP for an API. Which is awesome. Okay, so why did we choose CouchDB given what we need to do? First thing it said that it uses JSON for documents, so it's no SQL. Nice buzzword there, no SQL. That means that rather than having a schema that we look at where it's got columns and rows, we have a JSON document. So let me actually open this up somewhere for us. That's not it. There we go. Okay, so this interface here is Futon. This is what comes with CouchDB. This is their user interface for looking at them. And each one of those guys over there is a document in the database. If I click on one of them,
I think you have to do authenticate.
did I not do that already?
We probably lost the session.
Okay, perfect. So here's my document.
So this is what linguistics data looks like. You probably think it looks familiar, no? It's just JSON.
Yeah, yeah. So it's just JSON. So some of the things like this is the actual data you're talking about. So we have an utterance. So it has a label, utterance, and a value. So this is something that someone would say in, I'm not sure what language.
Quechua.
In Quechua.
Quechua is the language spoken in Peru, in the mountains.
Yeah, and another thing they're looking at is they break it down into morphemes. That same utterance broken down into morphemes, and so that's the linguistic side of things. But it really doesn't matter. It's just JSON, which is great. We love that. We can change it anytime we want. Good here and not so good there. Cool. Yeah, gives us flexibility. Okay, so the next reason is because of MapReduce. Given that it's a NoSQL database, we can't use SQL for queries, obviously. So what they use instead is they use MapReduce, which we can write in JavaScript. Get back again to where I was. I can go back, and actually all the MapReduce queries are documents themselves in the database. So like that. So all you do is you define your map function and your reduce function over here, again in JavaScript, or if you like, CopyScript as well. And your map function, if anyone's done MapReduce before, yes? Or knows anything about it? Okay, a little bit. You're basically going through a whole bunch of things and you're outputting a key value pair. And then the reduce acts on the key value pair and kind of tries to merge it back into a value. So this at the bottom goes through our whole database and performs the map function on it. and we get a precedence relationship and a value. And the reason we are opening one for every time is if I then enact the reduce function on it, we're getting how many times this precedence relationship shows up in the database. So all it's doing is taking account of each one of these. So this one happens twice. All the others.
Which we're using to fuel a visualization of morphemes in the corpus that flies around the screen.
Yeah, fun things we can do.
So it's handy. The MapReduce is really open-ended. I like that. Yeah. And linguists can write them, more importantly, right? So they can go and write their own queries.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And another reason we chose it is because we knew it had version data. It was built into Couch from the beginning. We didn't need to do anything special to get versions data. And after all this time of using things like GitHub and version control, we know how important versioning is and how useful it is. So if I go back to that first document I was looking at, or similar to it, you can see it's got an underscore revision, and that's in every document, and it's got this like, and we've got a 1 dash. So that basically means that this is the first revision of this document. If I were to go in and actually change something, say I change the value of judgment star, and make sure my Json was still valid, and I save it. And you see, oh, I saved it twice by accident. My revision number changed up to 3. And down at the bottom, this really long file, I can switch between versions if I want to take a look at other ones. So say someone made a mistake on our GUI and they wanted to go, oh my gosh, I can't remember what I deleted. They can go back and look at them. Yep.
Can I interject?
Of course.
It's not recommended using that versioning because it's not doesn't sync, and you can compact the database so you remove revisions, but I think the recommendation is just to embed the previous document into the new document and then have revision control.
Are you talking about best practices for CouchDB or in general? CouchDB?
Especially if you're syncing, it's not gonna it's just gonna
Couch does sync the revisions, and if you try to push a revision that's older than an existing revision, it won't let you. I don't know.
It doesn't. It only syncs the current version. So if you have 10 revisions in one database and try to sync with another database, it only syncs the last one. So it doesn't. You can't keep revisions throughout sync data and other stuff. So.
Okay, so yeah, just every time every time it syncs, you're only getting the most recent version.
Yeah. Also, if you.
But this is on the server, right? So this is the central database, which all of the team members are using.
Yeah.
So their local pouch doesn't have multiple versions, but they do have access to the futon for power.
We do get the versions in pouch as well.
We have the versions in pouch, but if what he's saying is that there's no versions there, then it doesn't matter.
Right, that's true.
But it's good. It's really good for keeping up with syncing data because you have a lot of different data and so
yeah,
you can
and
look
that's
at
another thing. We do have multiple people working on the same data, so it's good for that as well. But yeah, thanks.
We'll have to talk more over beer.
Yeah.
So that was just a screenshot. And the last couple of reasons is trolling the internet and looking at forums and Googling and things like that. We found out that there was already a library for offline support. So they already had something called CouchDB, which we did end up using. And they also have a version for mobile support. So it has TouchDB. Oh, it's not showing what I want. There we go. Sorry. And TouchDB for the iPhone, the i versions of tablets, and the Android versions of tablets. I think the iPhone version is slightly more ahead than the Android version. And even CouchDB just got their alpha version while we were in development. So So things are changing and they're still changing.
Yes, last week our app broke. Well, in 1 week, in 1 month it'll be broken.
Yeah.
I'll tell you about it later. Due to IndexedDB and Pouch and how alpha everything is.
Yeah, and Dale Harvey, the guy who's doing PouchDB, I'm pretty sure he's somewhat associated with Mozilla, so he's kind of gearing things towards Firefox, so he knows when things break there, he fixes them really fast. But we were kind of on his case about Chrome, because that's what we were using. So every time something would break for us, we'd let him know, and he'd go, oh, you guys keep testing in Chrome. But yeah, so that's good. Okay, there we go. PouchDB modes. So PouchDB, again, was the JavaScript side of things. So it has 3 different modes that it can run in. It can store the database on IndexedDB. So that's the local version. That's the one. So that's what we use to keep it. Yeah. So I was going to show something else for that. I was going to show who actually develops in Chrome. Anybody? Yeah, quite a few. Okay. So everyone kind of knows what the inspect element does. It's got a whole bunch of stuff. And so what I found super useful with the IndexedDB is you can actually look inside it. If you go into resources, there's an IndexedDB part here. And if I go into this guy, these three databases inside IndexedDB actually combine to form the PouchDB. That's the underlying part.
If you have a really big database, it's a really good way to crash your browser.
Well, it's good for testing, I think. Maybe that's a better way to say it. And if I actually look inside it, I can see
You're
my
saying
JSON.
clicking on by sequence loads the objects, and so you shouldn't do that. Is that what you're saying? Or you're saying that PouchDB crosses browsers?
No, I'm saying that this interface, if it's too big, it crashes the browser. I've done that.
I don't know.
a couple
When
times.
we're developing with Chrome extensions, we generally make new users all the time, and each user has 3 pouches. So we've gotten over 100 pouches in there, each which has 3 IndexedDBs. We're loading lots of databases, and it hasn't crashed yet, but the amount of data in each one is around, I don't know, maybe 500 items.
Oh.
Which are very big.
Not very big yet. Wait till they import the internet. We'll see what happens.
But yeah, so it's just, again, that same JSON object that we saw in the PouchDB, just represented a little bit differently. The second mode is HTTP, which is the normal PouchDB way of doing things. It's the REST call to the server. And HTTPS, which they didn't have, but we needed. So it was basically the same as HTTP. So we added a little fix to the library and told Dale to add it, and he did. So that was great. And there's also a issue out asking for a WebSQL backend, a WebSQL implementation of PouchDB as well. But whether it's necessary, whether it'll actually get done, who knows?
It is implemented with shim.
Okay, so someone's forked it and implemented it because it's not on.
No, it's just you include the shim in your page and it works.
Okay,
And
so
the recent video from him was saying it was official.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And that
Wonder
they're
where issues
about to release it.
About to release it. Okay.
Yeah.
Sweet. All right. So update. WebSQL is there if you want it. Okay. So now I'm going to go back how I said we were using Backbone. So we want to use PouchDB as our backend for a Backbone model. So I understand there has been a Backbone presentation, but just really quickly, it's just a model view controller framework for JavaScript. So up here I have an example of a model in Backbone. Model. And normally when you're using Backbone and you want to persist your data, and you want to save and fetch your models, you're going to do it with either a URL property or this URL root. Sorry, getting over a cold. So it specifies the URL root, and then we're able to just call .fetch and .save, and it's going to do the REST calls to wherever it's told to do. But this doesn't work for us because we don't want to use REST, we want to use Pouch. So instead, another person, Joe, another GitHub person, he came up with a Backbone PouchDB adapter. So he's extended Backbone in order to accept this new property called Pouch. And he's also created this backbone.sync.pouch method, which takes in the address of wherever you want your back end of the pouch to be, whether it's IDB or HTTP or HTTPS, it goes there. And then after your model definition, you just get to fetch and save like normal. So these comments aren't quite right because it's not get post to pouch anymore. Now it's just actually just putting them into our PouchDB, which in this case in the back end is the IDB. Okay, so yeah, that was great. That was all figured out for us. That's pretty standard. Then we came into a problem with the fact that we were developing in Chrome, specifically the fact that we were developing in a Chrome extension. We wanted in a Chrome extension for that offline capability we were talking about. So it downloads everything onto the person's computer. Yes, definitely.
So we'll show you quickly what a Chrome extension really looks like. This is what it looks like essentially. You have no URL here, right? When you open a new tab, you have these apps that you have installed. Those are Chrome extensions, right? And you get them from the Chrome store. So our app is deployed in the Chrome store. This is why it's installed essentially, and all the data is delivered. All the JavaScript is delivered when you install it, so you don't have to worry about sending JavaScript down the wire as much as you would in other apps.
Yeah, so
Maybe I should put it back. I'm not sure.
that way. Okay, so why that caused an issue for us is because you're downloading all this stuff, you have a lot of capabilities within the person's computer. There's the potential of causing bugs, viruses, doing bad stuff.
Have you guys heard about viruses in the Chrome store? They exist. And they do really naughty things.
So in order to stop that, they created a new version of their manifest, the Chrome extension manifest 2, which came out while we were in the middle of development. And it cracked down on a lot of security holes, which JavaScript allows. Just normal JavaScript is fine and shouldn't be a problem, but they wanted to make it more secure if you want to make it a Chrome extension. One of those things is they disallowed eval completely. If there is an eval, it will not work. So unfortunately, there's an eval in the Pouch library. Lovely. So what we did is we found exactly where that eval was, and it's in a rather important place. It's in the place where the map and reduce functions get evaluated. So without it, most things work okay until you actually want to query the database, which you might want to do. So what it does, the reason that it's there is a perfectly valid reason, and we haven't figured out a beautiful way to get around it, is you saw how the map functions were defined as just a regular document in Pouch. It was just a JavaScript thing there. So when it gets pulled into Pouch, it's just text. It's a JSON file that just happens to be a function. So in that JSON file, it uses a function called emit, and that emits your key value pair at the end. So Pouch has an implementation on it on the server side. It works fine there. Pouch also has an implementation of it, which defined here, which I've taken out because the definition doesn't matter, but it is defined, and it's defined in the pouch.js file, right in the library. And so we want to use that version of it, but we only have a string. So the string calls emit, and we want to use this version of it. So we have scoping problems. So what they do to get around the scoping is to just take the string that we get in, and we just eval it while we're in the scope where emit exists. So it becomes a perfectly cool function, and we've assigned it to fun, or they've assigned it to fun.map so that they can use it later on. Great. So how did we get around this scoping problem? It's a hack. We hard-coded our map and reduce functions, all the ones that had been all beautifully put in the database, supposedly so that we wouldn't have to think about it. Instead, now we have hard-coded them where emit is in scope, i.e. inside the library. Then, like all of them, however many you happen to have, and then we just loop over them to see whether it's the version that's actually being called. Like, we get into the function saying we want to call this map function. Is that a valid map function? Check all our valid map functions, and if it is, then we're assigning it to fun.map. So here's the code for it. So here's the actual, we have two functions hard-coded. Within those functions, it calls emit. So because emit is actually defined in the same file in the same scope, it's now a real function. It's not a string, real function. Then I loop over them and I string compare it with the string that came in. And then if it's the same string, then I use this real function, not the string that came in, to get assigned the function. Ick. But it works. As long as you don't change any of the spacing in your function, then the string compare doesn't let me. But I'm sure I could have gotten around that if I really wanted to.
Questions?
Yeah.
So we're going to open up the floor now for the pouch side of questions.
Yeah, and then we'll move on to required JS after that. If anybody has anything. Yes.
I'm wondering, there are a handful of JavaScript parsers.
JavaScript parsers?
Yeah.
Okay.
Have you thought about
We are very interested and excited to hear anything that can get around the eval problem.
Yes.
Maybe a with statement in there could do something. Maybe inserting a script tag dynamically, but even that is like they're both crazy hacks, but
You can't
maybe a
insert a
different
script
kind
tag
of hack.
dynamically in Chrome extension 2. So there's a whole bunch of things that are security hazards that they've really cracked down on, which is awesome for us as new JavaScript developers because we totally learned what's bad about JavaScript really early. And we can't copy paste from websites that talk about stuff because it doesn't work. In addition to that, everything we run, all our web services have to be HTTPS, which is fun, you know. So,
if you get around the eval problem, wouldn't you have found another security hole in Chrome extension?
it's highly likely, right? So it depends on what it is, right? We have to, if we're taking anything that's a string and turning it into code, that's a security hole. So this solution kind of works in the sense that we're checking to see if it's a function that's known and running the one that's known, not the string.
Yeah.
So it's good security. The problem which we don't like is that we can't deploy new views like that. We have to put out a new version of the Chrome extension or put new queries in the database that are pre-coded for them. They can run on their own locally, but the pre-coded ones they can't, right?
Didn't they have an exemption for web workers or something like that?
Web workers?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know.
I don't think
know
web workers they're not done yet, are they?
They work.
in
sometimes.
Chrome and
When you're in a closed environment like we are, we might be okay.
Okay.
But you wouldn't have you wouldn't be able, because the specificity of it is that the code that is in the eval shouldn't be aware of the lexical closure because that's not been declared in the lexical closure. So this is a JavaScript bug in general that got fixed in Mozilla, I don't know, in Firefox, I don't know which one, maybe around 3 something. But basically, if you allow an eval code, then you can do var A, B, C, D, E, and then return A, B, C, D, E, whatever, and then you leak out the closure scope.
Right.
And this has all sorts of implication for capability, programming models, and all sorts of things. It's probably, you probably wouldn't be able to scope of it. Maybe the only way is to rewrite the patchdb code to inject emit into whatever is going to be called.
Okay. Yeah, rather than using a function, actually just find and replace or somehow.
If it's a string, then you're probably screwed. If it's a function that you get, then you probably would be able to get it.
Huh.
So we also invite like anyone else who's considering databases in the browser to ask other questions, and we can tell you a little bit about our experience. Our experience living on the edge is that we're living on the edge. It's really exciting. So we started out with the dev version of Chrome, which is 2 versions ahead, about 2 months ahead of what users are using. And in that version, we discovered that our app would break in September, but it didn't. Somehow Chrome had a bug, and they fixed that. But 2 weeks ago, or about a week ago, suddenly I opened our app and I was getting untitled corpus, and I'm like, why is this untitled exactly? And it turned out that it's because IndexedDB's implementation had changed again in Chrome. In 1 month, our app won't run unless we learn a way to upgrade our pouches to the newest IndexedDB. It works great if we tell the users to sync their data to the central server, and then log out and sync their data back down. They'll have a brand new IndexedDB and they'll be fine. But it's exciting. So if you're doing something that you have thousands and millions of users, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. In our case, there's about 1,000 people in the world who might use our app. We have a small user base, and we kind of know them by first name.
Can't you sync between any instance of pouch,
Yes, yeah. You can sync locally too.
Yeah.
So that could be a good solution for me to deal with the update problem, yeah. But it's exciting.
Have you looked also into the plugin models of the other browsers, like running it in Firefox, for example? Or it's just you pick Chrome because you guys use Chrome and that's all good?
No.
I like Chrome, I use Chrome, so I don't care. But,
my impression of Firefox plugins was that it's quite a bit more work. With Chrome, you really just take a folder full of JavaScript code, and suddenly you have an application.
Yeah.
Like that's nothing else. So if we want to stay pure JavaScript stack with our Node.js and our Chrome extensions, we can.
We were also hoping it would work online in any browser. That happened.
Yeah, it does, by the way. So it does work except for one thing.
Yeah, except for one thing. Except it won't talk to a couch on the server.
Cross-site scripting.
Yes.
So we're waiting for a patch to come in on CouchDB, which exists, but our hosting provider is CypressCatch, and he's kind of working on it still, so we let him work because he's kind of busy.
Yeah, and since it seems to be working in Chrome extensions for the moment, we can just tell people use that. Later on, we're hoping to get it to work online, in which case then you will be able to use Firefox. I
You can.
doubt it
We've
if you
tested.
can use Internet Explorer.
We've tested Firefox, Safari, and Chrome for the online version. Safari doesn't work at all. Don't know why. It's WebKit. I thought they had IndexedDB. No. But Firefox's pouch is happy. The database works fine. There's a couple of small differences between Firefox and Chrome that makes our UI not work, but the database itself is fine, right? Our UI is also very simple, as you can probably see. It's Bootstrap. Twitter Bootstrap. Yeah. Our clients are very happy with Futon. They don't really need a user interface.
Yep.
Is a PouchDB slower than the CouchDB?
Yes.
Much slower?
It's also not completely implemented, I think, right? So the API is mostly there.
I think the API is entirely there, but a few of the things are not done in the fastest way possible. Like the map reduce functions, if you're doing them actually on the server, they're kind of pre-done. Like once you've done the map reduce function for a document, it gets stored or cached somewhere, and so it doesn't need to be recalculated every time. Whereas the JavaScript implementation doesn't bother with any of that. When you run your map reduce function, you're literally going through every document in the database, and you're running its map and its reduce if there is one. And so the searching, we do notice a significant difference. Also the rest of it. But I don't think we're taking complete advantage of it either.
Can you replace a PouchDB with a local CouchDB instance? Would it be a solution for a big database?
We are right now, actually.
Yeah.
So we can run in 3 ways. We can run locally in development mode, which is development server and production server, and we can use a full CouchDB locally on the machine, of course, because it's HTTP, right? And because we've coded our app so that the connections between servers are loosely defined, users can switch different couches if they want to and sync to that one, as long as that one has their credentials on it. Yeah, and I think that's definitely, we'll see what happens when our users really do try to import it into an entire forum. I'm really not sure what's going to happen. We've tried to load test, but our app itself is not stable enough to test the libraries at that time. It's getting more stable. It's only about 5 months old.
Okay,
Should we go on to
reply?
the next? So the second part of our talk is about require.js. A few weeks ago, maybe a few months ago, we were talking about building apps. And I mentioned that yes, require does actually work if you want to build for multiple environments, if you figure out how to get it to go. So I wanted to give a little quick run over of how we got require to go. So require.js is a JavaScript file and module loader. It's optimized for the browser, but you can use it in Rhino or Node.js. So that would be why my phone was ringing. Yeah. So why require.js? Require.js makes it easier to develop because at the top of your file you can declare what the dependencies are of that file, just like you would do in Java. So when you start doing require.js type of JavaScript, it looks a lot like Java, in my opinion. So you say what you want on the top. It's a lot easier to work on. You can have smart identifications in your app, and you can also build widgets by building a subtree of your build structure. So if you've got your structure in a pretty hierarchical way, you can calculate your dependencies, and you can only build a subsection, which is pretty convenient. On the other hand, getting libraries like backbone underscore and jQuery to play nice with require.js is tricky, or it was always tricky until recently. So we discovered, sort of after we decided we were going to require.js route, that there are two camps in JavaScript, AMD and non-AMD, I would say. And AMD is asynchronous. I don't know
what it stands for.
Anyway, the point is, some people believe that you will always build your code, so you should not need to have to do a require.js to be able to manage your code. And like they use CoffeeScript, I think. So in CoffeeScript you build and you reproduce JavaScript, and that's what goes in your app. You don't have this direct connection between what you debug and what you code. But with require.js, we don't have a build step, which is awesome when you're debugging, because you don't forget. Oh, I should build before I check. So this is how you solve the problem of getting backbone and underscore, which are very important libraries for anyone who's using frameworks to make client-side apps. It's shims. Shims came out on May 28th, about a month or so after we needed them. But we discovered them again eventually. They're really simple in their implementation, and they're fantastic because it makes it easier to work with libraries that are not AMD compliant. So you simply shim them in. You say what they are and what they export as. So for example, the library underscore, you can export your underscore if you want to. jQuery, you can export your $. The same with Backbone. Backbone has dependencies. You can declare them here, and it works. So maybe you don't like toy examples. I don't either. So this is what our require.js really looks like. We have Bootstrap. We have a whole bunch of jQuery libraries, plugins, PouchDB, Backbone, handlebars, cryptography libraries, and our templates. And then we get into the actual require area. So this is where it looks like Java, in my opinion. You state what files you need, you state what you want to call them, and then you proceed to use them here. So it's nice and global. So without any joke, the core reason we built the app was for hackability, because we had power users who wanted to mess with their data, and we wanted to give them that access. So if you build and you minify and you ship that to your user, they can't hack anything. They can't really figure out what the variables are. They know that's core. But with require, we can build for hackability if we choose to. So I'll show you an example. So as Teresa showed you, this is your Chrome extension, and here if you click on the sources tab, you actually have the code with comments telling you how to use it. You can go in as a power user, write your own functions, maybe you can write your own MapReduce, run it, and then tell us the MapReduce you love, share it with a community of other people who want to run stuff on their data. And life is fantastic. So you have all kinds of good information in there. So, for example, if I want to go and get the data that are currently loaded in this data list, I now have them in an array, and I can loop through them, which is, invaluable if you have power users. So we built for hackability. And you can build for speed if you want to, so you can run uglify on your code. to minimize it for transfers if you're going to build a web widget or whatever. Let me see if I can get it. I think it's up. Good. So this is essentially what our Corpus dashboard, the one that you just saw, looks like when you minify it using require.js. And it's, I guess it's long, not so bad. But I think we could probably shut that down where and not have too much trouble. You can also use it for different environments. So if you have a tree where things are for Android, if you have something like Corpus viewed Android, and where that is the view that's idealized for Android, because Android, I generally plug into things like the microphone, for example, or other things where I'm literally going to use something that's code that I can only run on an Android. It's fantastic if you have some sort of builder that allows you to compile a subtree and use that for the Android and use something else for the Chrome extension, or for iPhone if you want. You can also build read-only models, so we don't always want our data to be able to be hacked. So if you build your tree such that you have the Corpus read-only view, and there are no edit views in there, and dependencies don't have any edits in there, they have to literally rewrite the code in order to edit the models. And embeddable widgets, as you might have guessed. So if the clients who are working on Micmac, have you guys heard of Micmac? It's a language spoken in New Brunswick. It's a language where there's maybe 5,000 peoples, but they don't really speak it anymore. So they're trying to revive the community, and if they want to show to the community that they're very busy, they can put an activity feed of the data they've been entering onto their blog, which is a WordPress blog. So that was pretty much why we were using require. So our conclusion is that offline is tricky, but it's actually possible now. So basically since last December when IndexedDB got implemented in Chrome, it's pretty much, you can actually run a database in a browser. It's great if you start with offline in mind. We started with developing a Chrome extension with no server. Because we had no build process, it was really easy. We knew what code would run offline from the beginning, which was great.
Yeah, we probably went a whole month, maybe a month and a half without a backend.
A good 2 months without a backend. But that's the beauty of it, right? And you get to really enjoy the true JavaScript when you're doing that. And if a library is in active development, feel free to read the code, because you can contribute back to it in general.
And also sometimes the bug isn't yours.
Sometimes the bug isn't yours. Sometimes it's the alpha library that you're using. So we wanted to thank the PouchDB guys, without which this wouldn't have been possible. They were super awesome. Also our clients who let us keep the app open source. So the app is all 100% open source. You have the client-side code, you have our 4 web services if you want to use it, you want to learn Node, whatever. All of it's on our GitHub, and we'd be really happy to explain to you how it works. And like I said, it's not just for linguistics data. PouchDB is NoSQL, and we designed our database so that if you import new data in CSV format, it automatically learns all the columns you have and makes them into fields for you. So it's useful outside of linguistics. And we want to thank our interns. They worked really hard. They're mostly linguistic students. They've never programmed before, but they've done logic classes before. And they learned a lot of things. We made them do BDD first as an experiment to see what would happen if you made people write tests before they coded. And I would say it worked out great.
Oh, one of them's here.
Yes, one of them is here.
So,
open up to random questions from any part of the presentation.
Can you talk a bit more about the BDD?
Sure. So that was exciting, actually, in many ways. So we started off using JS Test Driver and using Jasmine for our testing framework to write the tests in Sino. That was fun. We had Jenkins running our tests for us to see if the build was sunny or cloudy, which was great for the interns. They learned when they broke the build, which was another reason why we wanted to have tests, because we had interns who broke the build without knowing they broke the build. What else should we tell you? So we stopped using JS Test Driver in the middle. I think it had to do with require.js, because of the way that things got loaded. And we switched to Phantom.js.
Yeah, it ended up being, most of our tests ended up being the trivial ones.
Yes. We didn't find a way or have enough time to go for fun tests that involved clicking.
Yeah, so nothing was really testing the GUI. It was more testing. It was a learning process. It was more for, you've created a backbone model. The backbone model has these things in it with these defaults. Check to make sure that the defaults are what they're supposed to be doing. And so that way, if somebody else changed it and you had a reason that it was the default, someone will get a flag and it fails the test. And
yeah, we have unit tests to begin with because that's pretty much what the interns could understand before we started trying to do more exciting tests.
yeah, so then we looked into actually trying to do tests on the GUI and we're like, too complicated, deadline coming up.
Yeah, there's the test that we got written right here. Oh, we also have, because we had interns who had never programmed before, we made an effort to document the entire process of learning for them. So they actually we forced them to make screencasts about what they learned each time that we did something. So we actually have that in our dev blog. So if you're new to JavaScript, we have something that you can actually, we have a news channel that you can watch, complete with videos.
I haven't seen this yet.
Yeah, you haven't been, it's been a long way. Oh, you probably got to see the new backbone, sorry, the bootstrap.
Oh, yes.
So we made an effort to take the project, because we knew it was going to be one of our biggest JavaScript tests, to see what we could do to document the process so that more people could see if they like that kind of development.
What kind of IDE do you use for your BDD stuff? Do you integrate it?
We use Eclipse
Okay.
IDE to run the test.
Yeah, I mean, do you have the opportunity to debug while testing? When you run the unit test, can you stop at some point? Yeah.
We did while it was JS test driver.
Yeah.
Because it just ran in a separate browser window. So it was just another page that loaded all your script. So we could open up the inspect elements in the Chrome and we could still put our breakpoints like normal.
Okay.
And you can do this with Jasmine. So we did use Jasmine a bit to inspect while testing.
Okay. Because we're using the JetBrains family, so it's WebStorm or IntelliJ.
Yeah, you're using which one?
We currently have IntelliJ and WebStorm, which is the latest one, which is only for web. And so we have the opportunity to put breakpoints in the code. But I'm currently trying to integrate with JS Test Driver, which is a new feature of the IDE. But I'm quite new to it, and
JS Test Driver actually worked better on WebStorm for a long time.
Okay.
It suddenly works again in Eclipse, like after version, I don't remember what, but I think I really liked that idea of debugging in my IDE, but actually Chrome is actually an IDE in some sense. So we have our breakpoints. I don't know if you guys know that, but you can actually run breakpoints in Chrome, which opened up the world of debugging to me. And plus you can modify the code on the fly. It's kind of nice. Whereas Eclipse is never smart enough to handle my JavaScript. Like it doesn't understand JSON, I think.
So basically you have your test somewhere, and when you save or launch some build, it's automated with Jenkins, and it runs all the tests, and you have a report. Okay.
Yeah, that's what we have set up right now. But we're always excited to find new things and to find a way to do the more exciting tests, like the tests where you have, clicking and getting flows to run.
How do you handle updates?
For what?
For your app. It's an offline app.
Chrome extension. So whenever I want to update our code, I just change the manifest number up one, and I go to my Chrome store and I upload the new zip. And it's deployed, so it's deployed and the users have it in depending on, I haven't quite figured out what Chrome store does, but they do some sort of process to crunch your code to see if it's safe. Some sort of machine run thing, and there might be a human involved thing too, because I often publish around midnight, and I don't see it until 9 in the morning. So I don't know exactly, but that's how we deploy.
What was your overall experience with the Chrome extension aside from the eval pack?
I'm going to stick to it actually. So it's good enough that we would stick to it. Yeah. I think it's.
Yeah.
I think I love the fact that you just open a folder, right? So there's nothing better than coding with just a folder. You could edit your text in anything, and you have it in your browser, and you have breakpoints. I love that.
No issues with auto deploy through the Chrome store?
With the what?
With deploying to your users?
No, we haven't had any issues with deploying. Well, though, we changed the name of the app for users. It's called LinkSync. We figured that would work for them. And I made a new account with Chrome Store, and it took about 5 days or so before I could pay the fee. Because it was a fresh email.
Good experience.
I think so. Have you had bad experiences?
No, that's what I'm wondering. I've been looking around.
Okay. I can't really, no. I can't say that there's that much bad stuff about it. The real challenge is that Chrome is updated every 2 weeks if you're on the dev branch, and every 6 weeks if you're a user. Which means your environment changes without you knowing, and you need to be there. You need to be watching your app, you need to be testing it, you need to be using it.
To catch that, so you're not in full control of when things change.
Yeah.
Necessarily.
That's web, no?
No.
Excuse my English.
Mais vas-y, en français, c'est correct, là. On a dit
Preparing that. So, how many times you spend to try to hack the eval issue?
That's a good question.
I probably spent about a day searching to see if there was any way to get around it cleanly. I was searching for alternatives to eval, and of course there are ways to get around it that literally don't use the word eval, but that use eval inside them, and Chrome said no to all of those as well. It knew what it was doing. And I spent maybe a day waiting because I emailed Dale Harvey, the guy in charge of Pouch, asked him, I let him know, okay, there's this problem that we're having. Can you think of any way to get around it himself? And he basically came back and said, no. And then we came up with this, and the whole time I'm writing it, I'm like, oh my god, I don't want to be hard coding in the library.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so when we update Pouch, we have to put that function back in.
Yeah, so probably in total 3 days. Trying to figure it out myself, trying to ask for help, and then giving up and doing
So you
that.
don't lose time with that, but it's some, if I understand, it's like third in your project. It's a third party that it's a library. It's in a library. Why you don't try to rewrite that library by yourself or using stagers like other student, baccalaureate student or couple students? I don't know. Because it's a big problem.
Well, PouchDB is big.
I know, but maybe sometime you can find some smart people rewrite it quickly, or I don't know.
But Dale is actually kind of smart. So, I'm not really, we'll see. My hope is that we'll be able to find a better solution and contribute it back. That's my hope.
Like you replace it?
Yeah, we might try the idea where we can send image in as a parameter.
Because in my case, when I face that kind of problem, I prefer rewrite it by myself, and I don't care if it's I don't think it's really big, or I try to find another term and try to make it work like with other terms, and just scratch that code.
Mais il n'y a pas vraiment d'autres personnes qui ont une implémentation de CouchDB au complet en JavaScript. C'est quand même beaucoup de code.
Ce que je pense, c'est la réduction, surtout juste l'étape de réduction, la remplacer.
On va regarder ça, mais for us it was more of a question of finishing the app. We had 5 months. We needed it to get done. We launched it in Guatemala in August. So we started in April, and we launched in August. And that's what we had to do.
At the beginning, you talked about encrypting your data.
Yeah.
Where did you encrypt it, and how did you synchronize it, and what is the, do you have any problems with keys or things like that?
So I'll show you exactly what the encryption looks like. So this is a sample datum. It has other fields that are hidden down here. That's what I mean about the data not being just linguistic. You can put whatever you want in there. If you click on the encryption button, it masks the data so that it still works as data for many linguists, because we often just look at patterns anyway. What this does is, in the database, the data is encrypted.
You're talking, is that offline?
Offline.
Offline, you're doing that? Okay.
So it encrypts it into the database. So it's stored in the database as an encrypted string, which is also 64-byte encoded. and then that is pushed to the central server. And it has, in addition, a mask, which we show the user. So we don't show them the encrypted string because it's really ugly, but we show them this. So I think, and this was really exciting for us. I think one of the most important things that we thought about a lot was the encryption problem and how to make sure that the users are truly themselves when you have encrypted data and you're running offline and the app is hackable. With all of those.
But you're pushing it to the server, but she said that you can work on different nodes. So I guess different persons, the same thing. Different persons accessing the same information. How do they identify their own key, or is it like
the
towards the encryption?
So the encryption for the corpora is a token for the entire corpora, which is shared. And if you authenticate with your user, the app will decrypt you. Database. So there's a one-to-one relationship between a corpus and a database. So I'll just use the word database. Anyway, so the database has a token which we use to do the encryption, and that token is known in a very secret place and decoded, and only if you authenticate. And you have to hit the authentication server to prove that you're you. And it's working. So we actually went to Google I/O in Montreal and asked the Chrome extension guys what they would do in this situation where you want to encrypt data, you want to make sure the user's truly them. And they said that there's no place in Chrome to hide stuff. So Flash was the solution. we haven't implemented yet.
The other question is, because I see that screen that you, as an input data, is that something that you coded, or is it included in, because it's the first time that is it in Couch, or is it like, you said that that's your screen, so in terms of form, that is that something that's a certain tool, or is it you that made it?
We wrote this, but we used Twitter Bootstrap for this, for the bulk of the CSS.
Okay.
Yes. We wanted to, like I said, data entry is super boring. So I personally prefer transparent and random, so that whenever I'm editing data, I get a new interface, like every half an hour, and I'm feeling good.
Because on that screen, you've got the Unicode on the right side.
Yeah.
For linguistics, is there, like, did you standardize a way for storing your data?
The data is all stored in Unicode, yes, and there are certain symbols that our users need, so it's called IPA, which are specific symbols that they need, and they often have a way to do that on their own computer. So if they have a Mac, they have a keyboard that they can click on the side that will put the API in. But if they don't, and then they can just hide this section, right? But if they don't have that, they can drag and drop these into, sorry, I might have, into the fields. And we have also some logical symbols for the semanticians because they could work with things like lambdas and existential variables.
Can you save files in Chrome extensions?
Yes. Good question. Let me show you our power user terminal. So here we have a terminal. And you can actually, and this is directly connected to the file API in Chrome. You can save files, which was what we were going to do if we didn't get Pouch. So we didn't know what we were going to be able to use to store the data. We were going to end up using flat files or not. But yes, you actually have something here. Let me put some data in the corpus for you. It'll take me a second to do it, I think. I have to go find some audio.
Following on that, I was just wondering, those files that you save, can you include them using require?
I don't know. That's a really good question.
If you could you potentially take the reduced stuff and save it into a file and then include it using require?
That's pretty cool.
Oh.
Let me make a note. So that just put the file into the file storage. So that was via drag and drop, and now you can play it, I think, or maybe not. Depends on the type of the file, but now you can actually see it in here. It tells you.
Cool.
So you have your files here. You can open them.
It's the confession.
Okay.
So I'm just so yeah, the file it's a whole new world. Files and databases and all these good things. So yeah, I'm gonna make a note. Yeah.
Are you planning to record your voices directly from the browser? Is there something you thought about?
I don't know yet how the Chrome API works for that, or other browsers' APIs to record microphones. This is why we support Android, and that's why I mean Androids are dirt cheap and awesome if you're working in the field because they have a really long battery life, and you can show videos to your language consultants to get them to give you data.
It's coming because of.
I know it's coming, but
it's
when?
Here in the browser now in Chrome because of the
Google Voice Search.
Yeah, I figured. Yeah, they do. So you guys might have noticed on the Google search bar now you have a little icon for microphone there. So yeah, in general, that's why we stick with Chrome kind of because they have Chromebooks. Chromebooks are an operating system. Chrome is an operating system. So anything you want to do offline, you probably will find that on the Chromebook before you'll find it on other things because they already have these users that are demanding things like microphones. So yeah, that's cool. Maybe we can get that in soon. Our users will be very happy. Yep.
How does the offline and online syncing work? Like if a user makes like a change to one file, like how does it make a change like online?
It doesn't until you tell it to.
So you have to click on this button in order to sync your data up to the server, and it authenticates you when you do that. It asks you to authenticate.
So does it overwrite the changes on the server, or do you guys do like some sort of like?
It's Couch who does this. So
yeah, so it's just another version.
Yeah, the logic handling the syncing is not done by us, which is why we chose Couch and Couch. I don't know if you guys, there are lots of NoSQL databases out there, and when we chose Couch, I was feeling like maybe we're choosing the wrong one, just because MongoDB exists and other ones. But in the end, I'm actually happy. Do you guys have any other thoughts, like the other databases we would try?
I mean, Couch seems like the go-to guy there because it's multi-node replication, so it works in a grid. So you can replicate between like 10,000 people independently and then shift the permutation and sync again, and eventually it all sync up in a grid. So with your use case, it would probably allow you to have two linguists meeting in whatever, Lima, Peru, and syncing their database and going on their merry ways with enriched database.
Yeah, we did use MongoDB for a while on our authentication server, and it was quite frustrating for me because I kept adding fields to our users, and then I'd have to update the user's schema. So, but this is NoSQL. Why is there schema? I didn't quite get it.
Well, you don't need at the scale that you're at too, you may not need the speed that might give you. So I always have a soft spot for Couch myself. It's just so close to JavaScript. You're writing JavaScript the whole way. It's like your transport is JavaScript, your front end is JavaScript, your data is actually written in JavaScript. So if you like JavaScript, it's nice. If you don't like it, then it's
But what's not to like? I'm a convert. Like, I think anyone who spends enough time in JavaScript will actually really be happy, except for the eval problem. So there's taking away the power of JavaScript, which
it's a powerful but dangerous command. Yes. With great responsibility and everything. great power.
Yeah.
I have a question concerning the performances, like on the server side, like how do you see the Node.js and the HDB running? Do you have some issues like crashing or something?
We have 0 crashes. I'll tell you why, right? Our Node.js is an authentication service. So the user pings it when they register and when they authenticate. Yeah. Rarely. Really rarely, given the way that our app is built. And also, I think even if we had millions of users, we'd be okay with one single Node.js web service for that. Just because it does nothing. It serves nothing. It's just rest. The Couch is another question. But Couch, I think Couch can handle a lot of hits. It's Erlang, which makes it good.
There's one very nice anecdote. BBC adopted CouchDB to archive their video, archive everything they have, essentially. And they were asked why they chose CouchDB, and they said, when there's war, nuclear winter outside, the world is in full catastrophic failure, the BBC is up, and that's why they chose CouchDB. The BBC still broadcasts and has all this stuff, so it's extremely resilient.
Do you guys have the concept of a session or anything, or any session handling issues with regards to authentication?
Yeah, that's a good question. So yeah, we do have a session token for the CouchDB, and it's 10 minutes. So if they want to, they have to re-authenticate to sync every time they want to contact Couch.
By clicking on that sync button.
Yeah, but most of our users won't ever sync. They might be just doing this by themselves. They might never back up.
Can they sync to a custom database of their own if they want to for whatever reason?
They can sync to any Couch database. Yeah, as long as their user and password exist on that database. And this is really important too, so I'm glad you brought this up. We have up to 5 different instances of Couch right now that our app can contact. As long as it knows the HTTPS or not, the domain name, the port, and the name of the database, it's happy. So our clients are at McGill. They now have their own Couch database, and that's where their data is, not on ours.
Yeah, whereas we've been using Iris Couch, as mentioned before, or our local Urdu Couch for Endeavour.
Yeah. So we'll just maybe conclude and go for beer. But if you guys are interested, the code is here. Feel free to fork. We have a new module put in by one of our most recent interns. She's making an Android language learning app, which plugs into this and takes the data and turns it into an app that you can use to learn Mi'kmaq. And we actually have a prototype. She's finished. It's clickable. It doesn't do much, well, it does everything, but it has no brain. You can ask me later. So we have the web server itself, which does the website and shows the public version of the data. The authentication web service, which is super small and tiny, Node.js if you want. The Lexicon web service is growing. It's not ready yet. We're going to build that in Java. And the audio web service is a Node.js service, which I hacked together about 1.5 years ago, which accepts audio to be imported and then runs transcription routines on it to recognize the speech in the audio in Node.js.
Thank you. Thanks.